Hey everyone, and welcome to Action Hero, the podcast that brings you a brand new action-packed story every single day.
We're diving into worlds of epic storytelling that'll have you hooked.
On tales of adventure and carnage.
Absolutely.
Make sure to rate and follow so you don't miss out on what's coming next.
We've got some really cool stuff lined up.
I'm Adrian, your host for this wild ride.
And I'm Julia, here to break down all the action in fantasy.
And we've got a really cool story lined up for you today.
Oh yeah, this one's a good one.
Picture a hard-boiled detective.
But with a magical twist.
Throw in a murdered satyr, a shadowy figure about to unleash demons.
And you've got the gist of it.
It's a really unique blend of classic noir and fantasy.
Yeah, that's what immediately drew me to this story.
So let's paint the scene for you.
All right, let's do it.
Imagine a gritty city.
But instead of just your usual urban decay,
This one is teeming with magical creatures.
we're talking griffins flying through smog.
Dryads working at hidden speakeasies.
It's like Batman met Gandalf.
And it totally works.
Yeah, the story really makes it work.
So speaking of interesting characters, our detective is far from your average gumshoe.
Oh, he's definitely one of a kind.
He's got this ability called the sight.
A result of some pretty brutal experiences in a past war.
This sight is more than just a cool power, though,
Right. It suggests that magic in this world is a double-edged sword.
often tied to trauma and pain.
Makes you wonder what price our detective had to pay to gain this ability.
You can see how that's shaped it.
He's got that classic, cynical, seen-it-all detective attitude.
But there's also this weariness to him,
Like he's carrying a heavy burden.
which makes him a much more complex and compelling protagonist.
Than your typical tough guy detective.
For sure. Okay, so the story kicks off with a murdered satyr, his horn ripped off.
Gruesome.
Turns out these horns are incredibly valuable on the magical black market.
Oh yeah, they're highly sought after.
Now, in traditional mythology,
Satyr horns are often linked to nature's abundance and wild energy,
but here the story kind of twists that concept.
turning the horn into a commodity.
A source of power that can be exploited.
It reflects a darker side to magic.
One driven by greed and desperation.
Exactly.
And it's that desperation that drives a lot of the characters in this city.
Yeah, they're all trying to survive.
The story does a great job of showing how these magical creatures
Despite their extraordinary abilities.
are often marginalized and forced to operate in the shadows.
It's a clever way to explore themes of social inequality and prejudice.
Even in a world of magic, it seems some things never change.
Sadly not.
Now, as our detective investigates
He starts picking up on these whispers.
about this mysterious figure known only as the Harbinger.
Nobody seems to know who he is.
But everyone fears him.
This is where the story really starts to build suspense.
We know something big is brewing,
But we're kept in the dark about the Harbinger's true motives,
like a shadow looming over the entire city.
adding to the overall sense of unease.
And as the detective digs deeper,
He starts to realize,
this satyr murder is just a small piece of a much larger puzzle.
yeah, there's something much bigger going on here.
What does this Harbinger want? And what role do these magical creatures play in his schemes? Well,
That's a great question.
that's what we're going to unpack in the next part of the show.
Welcome back to Action Hero, where the action never stops and the stories keep you on the edge of your seat.
So before we went to a break, we left our detective on the trail of this shadowy figure, the Harbinger.
Right, he's picked up a few clues, but...
The Harbinger's true plan remains shrouded in mystery.
And what we do know about his plan is, pretty terrifying. This isn't some small-time crook we're talking about.
No, this is big leagues.
The Harbinger is messing with powerful magic, ancient rituals.
Forces that could shatter the barrier between our world and the demonic realm.
It's a pretty high-stakes situation.
Yeah, the stakes are definitely getting higher with every step the detective takes as he investigates.
He uncovers more about the Harbinger's goals.
And they're a lot bigger and a lot more sinister than just stealing a satyr horn.
Yeah, this goes way beyond a simple theft.
The Harbinger isn't just driven by greed.
Or a thirst for power.
He's a fanatic, obsessed with the idea of tearing down the walls between worlds and unleashing chaos upon the city.
It's like those historical figures who believed they were doing the right thing.
Even when their actions were horrific and destructive.
Exactly.
And the worst part is that the city's magical creatures,
They're caught in the middle of all this.
the Harbinger's manipulating them, using their desperation and their unique abilities to achieve his own twisted goals.
The story's exploration of this, fantasy underclass really adds another layer of complexity to it.
It's a commentary on how those who are already marginalized often bear the brunt of someone like the Harbinger's ambitions.
Yeah, they're the ones who end up paying the price.
It definitely makes you think about who really holds the power in this world and who suffers the consequences when that power is abused. But hey,
Oh, yeah, I wanted to bring this up.
remember that woman, the fiery dame who hired the detective to investigate her brother's death?
Right, right.
It turns out there's more to her story than meets the eye.
She's not just a grieving sister looking for answers.
No, she's actually a key part of the Harbinger's plan.
He needs her power.
Her connection to the magical world to fuel his ritual.
Which reminds us that in this story,
The damsel in distress.
is anything but helpless. She's got her own motivations, her own power.
And she's determined to take control of her own fate. It's a refreshing twist on a classic trope.
For sure.
And all of this leads to a heart-stopping climax. Our detective tracks the Harbinger down to a creepy abandoned warehouse on the edge of town.
It's the perfect setting for a showdown,
There he finds a summoning circle glowing with dark energy.
surrounded by monstrous guards.
It's clear that something truly terrible is about to happen.
The tension at this point in the story,
It's almost unbearable. The detective knows he has to act fast.
but the odds are stacked against him.
It's the classic showdown between good and evil.
But with a magical twist.
This rundown warehouse becomes a battleground.
A microcosm of the larger conflict raging between order and chaos.
Our detective, he might be cynical and world-weary.
But he's not going to back down.
He's not going to let some fanatic destroy everything he holds dear. Remember his sight.
Right.
Well, it's more than just a way to see magic. It's a conduit, a way for him to channel that raw magical energy and possibly use it as a weapon.
This is where the story's take on magic gets really interesting.
The detective's power isn't elegant or refined,
It's messy, unpredictable,
and born out of trauma. It reflects his own internal struggles.
and adds a layer of realism to the fantastical elements.
So picture this, our detective, facing off against these otherworldly forces with nothing but his wits, his grit, and his unique magical ability.
Talk about an underdog.
The fate of the entire city hangs in the balance.
And let's not forget the dame.
Right, she's not just standing on the sidelines.
Fueled by grief and a desire for revenge,
She unleashes her own incredible power.
she becomes a force of nature.
A whirlwind of raw magical energy that even the Harbinger struggles to control.
It's an amazing moment of empowerment.
She refuses to be a victim. She takes charge of her own destiny and fights back against those who have wronged her. So now we have our detective and the dame
Two unlikely heroes.
standing against impossible odds.
It's a true clash of titans, a battle that will determine the fate of the city and maybe even the world. But
Oh man, this is going to be good.
you'll have to wait for the final part of our show to find out who emerges victorious.
Welcome back to Action Hero. We're in the final act now, and trust me, you won't want to miss how this all goes down.
Yeah, this is where things get really intense.
When we left off our detective and that fierce dame, we're locked in a desperate struggle against the Harbinger.
A fanatic who is just moments away from unleashing a demon into the city.
Right, and the tension.
It was so thick you could cut it with a knife.
But amidst all the chaos.
There was one element that kept nagging at me.
Oh, yeah.
That stolen satyr horn. Remember, that's what kicked off this whole investigation.
Right. The Harbinger's obsession with that horn seemed like more than just greed or even a desire for power.
It felt almost ritualistic.
And you were right. That horn,
Turns out to be the linchpin of the Harbinger's entire plan. He's using it to weaken the barriers between our world and the demonic realm.
creating a gateway for that monstrosity to enter.
Exactly.
So not only do they have to fight off the Harbinger and his goons,
They also have to race against time to stop this demon from breaking through
it's like trying to plug a leak in a dam.
while it's about to burst.
And that's where the detective's sight becomes crucial.
Right, because remember, it's not just about seeing magic.
It's about channeling it,
Yeah.
wielding those raw, chaotic energies that flow between worlds.
It's like he's learned to fight fire with fire, using
Yeah.
his own trauma, his own connection to the magical realm.
To combat this otherworldly threat.
Exactly.
So does he pull it off? Does he manage to stop the ritual and send that demon packing back to the abyss?
He does, but not without a fight. The warehouse is literally falling apart around them. As they battle, the Harbinger's goons and the demon claws its way through the weakening veil.
It sounds absolutely insane.
It is. It's a scene of pure chaos and mayhem. But in the midst of all that, our detective,
He sees an
he
opportunity,
grabs the satyr horn
channels his sight.
and disrupts the ritual with a surge of raw magic.
Talk about a clutch play. Did it work? Was the demon banished back to the fiery depths from whence it came?
It was a sight to behold. That demon let out an ear-splitting shriek as the portal collapsed and it was sucked back into the void.
Awesome. So they saved the day.
They did, but as with any good story,
There's a twist.
there's a bittersweet element to this victory.
What do you mean?
Well, for starters, the Harbinger is defeated, but the forces he represented,
The fanaticism, the desperation.
those things are still out there lurking in the shadows, waiting for another opportunity to rise.
That's a chilling thought. It's like they defeated the symptom, but not the disease.
Exactly. And then there's the question of the Dame. She was incredible in that final fight, a true force of nature.
Yeah, she really stepped up.
But when the dust settles,
She's gone?
she's nowhere to be found.
Oh, wow. Do we know what happened to her?
That's the beauty of the ending. It's left open to interpretation. Did she disappear by choice? Did she make a sacrifice to ensure the ritual's failure?
The story doesn't give us a definitive answer.
Which I actually appreciate.
Yeah, I can see why. It adds a layer of mystery and leaves the reader pondering the possibilities long after they've finished the story. It's like the echo of the action reverberating in your mind.
Precisely.
So we have our detective standing amidst the wreckage of the warehouse,
His city saved.
but his world forever changed by what he's witnessed.
He may have won this battle.
But he knows the war is far from over. There will always be another threat.
Another Harbinger waiting in the wings.
But he's ready. He's not your typical hero, but he's the kind of hero this world needs,
Someone who's seen the darkness,
who's been touched by it.
and yet still chooses to fight for what's right.
What a fantastic story. And what a great discussion, Julia. I feel like I understand this world and these characters so much better now.
Me too. It's amazing how much depth and complexity can be packed into an action-packed narrative.
Absolutely. So for all you listeners out there, if you found yourself in this magical city, what kind of power would you want? What kind of case would you be drawn to? Let us know your thoughts on social media.
We love hearing from you guys.
And don't forget to rate and follow Action Hero for more thrilling tales of adventure and carnage. We'll be back tomorrow with another epic story.
So stay tuned.